Budgets suck, don't they? They're always telling me that I don't have enough money to do what I want to do. You know what would be great? If there was a budget that actually focused on spending money on what I want to spend money on. Well, my friends, I've got some good news for you today because there is such a budget. Hey everyone, Daniel here, and welcome to Next Level Life, a channel where you can learn all about investing, debt, retirement, and many other financial education videos besides, because let's face it, the schools aren't going to teach it for us. So if any of those topics sound interesting to you, or if you want to learn how to better handle your money and have more financial freedom, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell next to my name so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. So I thought after doing a few videos on debt recently, this would be a good follow-up because it's pretty hard to pay off your debt if you don't know where your money's going to begin with. I probably should have started this series first, but what can you do? And I just want to say, since I will be doing multiple budgeting videos like this on this channel, this isn't me saying that one budget is the best budget, or that one budget is better than another budget. That's not my goal with this channel. This is a financial education channel. My goal is just to let you know what options are out there for you, and let you make an informed decision when the time comes to choose your own path. Anyway, since this is my first budgeting video, I thought I'd start off with a fairly simple one, and it's known as the 50-30-20 budget, or sometimes as the balanced money formula. And it was popularized by Elizabeth and Amelia Warren in the book Lifetime Money Plan. So let's get started. What is the 50-30-20 budget? It's really just a simple way to get started on a budget. It's a rule of thumb budget meant to help you figure out how much of your income should be going to certain items. The 50-30-20 budget tells you that 50% of your income should go towards necessities, 30% towards your wants, and 20% towards your financial goals, whether that be paying off debt or saving for retirement. I should also say that these percentages are calculated based off of your after-tax income. Now, your necessities are basically the four walls of your financial house, and they include things like housing, food, basic clothing, and transportation, as well as some other bills that you may need to pay to survive. Wants could obviously be anything from that Netflix subscription to going out to eat more often. And I've already mentioned some examples of what financial goals are, and they are entirely dependent on you. So who does this work best for? Since it is a pretty simple budgeting system, I would say that it could work particularly well for beginners, those who are just starting to budget and don't want anything too complicated, and are not having any serious financial troubles when it comes to things like debt. And I'll go into why I think that in a minute. I also think that it can work well for those who are debt-free, especially if they're still relatively young. And again, I'll illustrate why I think that in the example in a minute. But first, I want to cover why this budget could fail. Since this budget specifically requires you to be able to determine what is a need and what's just a want, if you're not very good at doing that, this budget may not be the best starting option for you. Just imagine that you're making $50,000 a year. You're living in California, because let's face it, the weather there is incredible, everybody knows this, and you're looking for an apartment. You're young and single, so you don't need a whole lot of space in an apartment, but there's just a lot of really nice places to live there. And say you select a really nice apartment in Hollywood, because it's got so many things that you totally need, like that awesome fitness center, and that pool, or that hot tub, and just so many great things. Now, it is a studio, but it still costs you about $2,500 a month. I'll even say that that's with utilities for the sake of this example because I'm feeling a little generous towards our hypothetical Californian. Now, let's take a quick step back here. $2,500 a month is $30,000 a year, which on its own is already over the 50% of our $50,000 income. And we haven't even covered our other necessities yet. We haven't thought about food, we haven't thought about clothes for the new job, and we haven't thought about gas and insurance. Do you see where this is headed? We're not going to have that much left over for our wants. And that's before we even consider the effect that debt may have on the situation, assuming our hypothetical Californian has any. So yeah, not knowing how to separate needs from wants is clearly one way that this budget could end up failing. But that's not the only time that it could fail. It could also fail, again, if you have too much debt. Let's take that same hypothetical Californian, and instead of putting them in the nicest and probably almost the most expensive apartment they looked at, let's say that they got a more modest apartment for around, I don't know, $1,200 a month. It may not have that fancy fitness center or that pool, but it's still a nice enough place to live, at least while we build up our financial foundation. Let's say that their food expenses are around $300 a month, and their basic clothing needs cost about $100 a month on average. and we'll throw $500 a month into transportation costs. That puts us right around $2,100 a month in necessities, or about $25,200 a year. So we are a little bit over our limit, but still pretty darn close. We're just going to have to cut back a little bit on our wants. Unless, of course, we have a mound of debt. The average car payment in America is about $500 a month, and the average student loan debt is about $37,000, according to student loan expert Mark Kantrowitz. That was in 2016, which was the most recent data that I could find at the time of this recording. Now that boils down to an average payment of over $380 a month, assuming a 4.5% interest rate on the student loans. And according to NerdWallet, the average household credit card debt in 2017 was over $15,000, meaning the minimum payment would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $350 a month, or about $4,200 a year. Again, assuming an interest rate of 15%, we'll say, on the credit card. That's nearly $15,000 a year of our wants that are practically just walking out the door. And it means that our debt and living expenses are about $40,000 a year, in this scenario anyway. This means that not only do we have no money whatsoever left over for the wants in our life, but we also just barely have enough to hit the 20% mark for our financial goals, which in this case would probably be paying off debt. So again, at least in this scenario, with these numbers, this budget probably would end up failing. Obviously, if you made a lot more than $50,000 a year after taxes and had these expenses, you may not have a problem. Again, it all depends on your situation. But I don't like to just look at the negative on this channel. So what happens when this budget actually does work? Let's take that same hypothetical Californian and put them in the same $1,200 a month apartment with the same living expenses as before, except this time they're debt-free. So they're able to enjoy their wants to the tune of over $1,200 a month, and still put away $10,000 a year. Assuming they work for 40 years and get an average rate of return of about 8% in the market, they would wind up with nearly $2.8 million by the time they retire. So that's how the 50-30-20 budget works. If there are any other types of budgets that you want me to cover, let me know in the comments below. But that'll do it for me today. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell next to my name so you'll be notified of all my future uploads. I generally upload every single Friday, and if you have a friend that would be interested in this kind of content, be sure to share it with them. Let's really get this information out there and start our own financial revolution.